Thank you for streaming into Freetext. You're watching the Scam Universe Part 2. First of all, thank you so much for the amazing response you gave us to the Part 1 of this countdown, making it our most popular video yet in a short 5-month journey since we started this channel. In case you're one of those who've not seen Part 1, here's a quick recap for you. At number 10, we had the tailgate scam. Number 9, we had the US subprime crisis. Number 8, we had the inhuman opioid scandal in the US. Number 7, we had Satyam. Number 6, we had the PNB scam. So without further ado, let's find out who do we have at number 5.
Number 5 on our list is the Commonwealth Games scam of 2010. Hosting a major global event is a matter of pride for any nation. It creates massive economic activity, cleans up the neglected roads, and if it's a sports event, it creates state-of-the-art sports infrastructure. Now this is your view if you are a common person, but if you are a crooked politician, businessman or a bureaucrat, this means once in a lifetime earning opportunity, and that's what the CWG 2010 meant. In 2003, Delhi, the capital of India, was selected as the host for 2010 Commonwealth Games. Now it's a pity that some of the best moments for India actually took root during Mr. Vajpayee's government, yet he lost the following elections. Now that's a topic for some other day. For now, let's focus on the CWG 2010 in Delhi. Events were to take place at 12 competition venues. A total of 20 training venues were used in the games, and of these 20, 1 was used for archery, 3 for aquatics, 2 for lawn bowls, 2 for the netball, 8 for rugby sevens, including 7 venues within Delhi University, 2 for shooting, 1 for squash, 2 for table tennis, 1 for the weightlifting, 3 for wrestling, and 2 for tennis. A total of 5 venues were newly constructed for the games: the Dr. Karni Singh Shooting Range, the CD Forts Sports Complex, the Tyagaraj Sports Complex, the Yamuna Sports Complex, as well as Rugby Sevens facility in Delhi University Stadium. 2 venues, namely the Indira Gandhi Sports Complex and Jawaharlal Nehru Stadiums, were almost entirely redone. So how much did it cost? The initial budget estimated the total cost of organizing the games in India to be at $230 million. This was less than 25% of $1 billion spent by Australia in 2006 Commonwealth Games. But when you consider the fact a lot of things like labor costs are nearly 60% cheaper than Australia, which means India's $230 million spent actually couldn't be termed as low. But in reality, our organizers, led by Mr. Suresh Kalmari and his team, spent over $1.15 billion on the sports expenses alone. And if you include the other costs such as developing Delhi road infrastructure and additional grants by the central government under multiple different heads, some estimated the total cost to be around $9.8 billion, and thus making it the most expensive Commonwealth Games ever. Almost all of this came from the taxpayers' money. Even as the most optimistic estimate, the total economic activity that this has been able to create till date is less than $500 million, which is 3,500 crores on a spend of nearly 70,000 crores. So how much did the cost inflate so much? The alleged scam follows a familiar format: setting up of offshore and fake companies, get your friends and family to acquire a stake and become directors, award marquee contracts to such companies, and start approving the inflated invoices. And this is pretty much what happened in the CWG Games scam. The cost of everyday goods were inflated by over 1,000%. For example, a toilet paper roll valued at $2 was costed at $80, a $2 soap dispenser at $60, and about 98 minutes costed at $220. 11,800 plus altitude training simulator was costed at staggering $250,000. About 140 crore contract was given to a Swiss company for touch timing equipment. The deal was inflated by 95 crores. A payment of nearly 25 crores was paid for video equipment to a UK-based AM Films when they claimed that it provided services for car hire, makeshift toilets, barriers, and electricity. 16 more projects were investigated for financial irregularities, increasing the total cost of the games by nearly 17 times. Dr. Shashi Tharoor was paid 13.5 lakhs for just 12 days to use his influence in the international community, although no illegality here, but since he was a serving minister in the government, this raised several questions on devotion to the nation. So did anyone go to jail, or was any money ever recovered? Well, 4 small-time civic officials and 1 businessman were jailed for 5 years later in 2015. The alleged masterminds, which include Suresh Kalmadi, Amit Bhanot, and late Sheila Dikshit, the then Chief Minister, have not been sentenced till date. But what about the games? At least were they grand and successful? Our games could be termed moderately successful. Many venues had been empty on the opening day of the games. On the second day of competition, less than 100 people filled the hockey venue, which had a capacity of about 19,000 people. Less than 20 people watched the first tennis match of the tournament in the stadium, which had a capacity of 5,000 seats, and just 58 fans watched the netball opening match. The online tickets were showing sold out, when in reality the stadiums were almost entirely empty. Some experts believe that the apartments in the Games Village will not stand for even 20 years without major repairs. Our athletes, however, did return about 100 plus medals, finishing second only behind Australia.
If you're still watching, please take half a second to subscribe to our channel and do not forget to press the bell icon. From India to the US, at number 4 we have the biggest Silicon Valley startup scam ever. Imagine how easy life can be if you could run all your health checkups yourself at home, just like reading your blood sugar. This is what Theranos, a new age biosciences technology company, promised. Over 240 tests that you could practically manage all by yourself using a small device called the Edison. These included everything from blood sugar to cholesterol, potassium, calcium, hemoglobin, and a lot more. Exciting, isn't it? So a young 19-year-old Elizabeth Holmes drops out of Stanford to create a company that will democratize healthcare and position her as the next Steve Jobs. She walked up to her professors with an idea to unlock the infinitely vast amounts of data stored in a single drop of blood and make complex blood testing available to every single American at the comfort of their homes. The professors, however, saw a problem, and this problem was called science, and they rejected this idea as a non-starter. But like most of us millennials, rejections only made her more resolute in her pursuit. She finally convinced her advisor, the Stanford chemical engineering dean Shannon Robertson, to start a company named Real Time Cures in California. Later in 2003, she renamed the company Theranos, blending two words, therapy and diagnosis. Her dean Robertson became the first board member, and Elizabeth became CEO at 19. By 2004, they had raised $6 million in capital, and by 2011, they had raised 92. She had partnerships with some of the biggest companies in the United States like Walgreens and Safeway. Even governments were using the Theranos device Edison to administer a series of tests, including those for cancer patients. A key partner who aided Elizabeth was her boyfriend Sunny Balwani, a Pakistan-born IT businessman with experience of selling softwares to Chinese. Sunny, who was 20 years older than her, assumed the role of the president and the chief operating officer and routinely spied on Theranos employees so they stayed loyal, worked 12 hours a day, and maintained complete secrecy. The team worked day in and day out to get Edison to accurately perform a full range of tests widely being advertised to the world outside. By 2013, Theranos was valued at $9 billion without having to share any details with investors on the product design through a clause called trade secret protection. The company also had a board that was considered to be the greatest in American history. Everyone, from politicians to respected doctors, surgeons, CEOs of top banks, and even former Secretary of Defense was part of this board. From Bill Clinton to Barack Obama, from Hillary Clinton to Joe Biden, Elizabeth and Theranos could call them all friends. Elizabeth's personal net worth was estimated to be $5 billion, and just as she always aspired, she was hailed as the next Steve Jobs. Everything was working to plan, a committed team, massive funding, great public interest, except Edison was not able to perform even 15 of the 240 plus tests. Even those 15 tests were giving vague results. In reality, Theranos was actually collecting samples and testing them on third-party lab machines made by Siemens and others. The size and scale had grown so much that the truth could no longer be covered by motivating TED Talks. Wall Street Journal, with the help of rebel employees and business opponents, exposed the scandal. Elizabeth gave multiple interviews to project herself as a victim of an unfair world. But time was up. US FDA and other agencies walked into Theranos units on a fact-finding mission. All of Theranos' claims turned out to be fraudulent. Edison couldn't even perform a fraction of what Theranos had claimed. Lawsuits followed. Walgreens, $140 million. Partner funds, another $100 million. The love story with Sunny also came to a close, and Elizabeth fired him. The curtains came on Theranos in September 2018, and one of Silicon Valley's biggest dreams ended as a colossal nightmare, wiping out nearly $1 billion of investor money and 800 jobs along with it. Both Elizabeth and Sunny are facing trial, and if sentenced, could get up to 20 years in jail. There are several videos on Theranos' story, but the one that we loved the most was by Cold Fusion TV. You also issued a link in the description.
Coming in at number 3, all the way from Nigeria, is Abuja airport sale. So it was 1995 when a successful banker, Emmanuel Wood, serving as the director of the Union Bank of Nigeria, decided that the safe job and fat bonuses no longer serve his appetite, and he had to pull off something big. The city of Abuja was just named capital of Nigeria in 1991, replacing Lagos. Now this meant a new wave of economic activity will sweep the city and draw investments from around this world. Wood knew that for him to pull off a major scandal, he will need to pose like a senior shot from the government. A banker loves a banker, so he decided to impersonate no less than the governor of Nigerian Central Bank, Paul Ouma. And with access to all banking databases, thanks to him being a top banker himself, he knew exactly what to say and perfect this act. For those born after 2000, once upon a time there was a world with no Google, so you couldn't instantly look up someone on the internet. This was the time when internet was still finding its feet in the world. So what was the plot? The plot was to find a foreign investor and sell them the rights to build a new international airport at Abuja. After a number of failed meetings, he finally found the right suitor for this proposition, Nelson Sakaguchi, the director of one of the Brazil's largest banks, Banco Noreste, received a fax apparently from the Nigerian government seeking private investment in developing an international airport in Abuja. The banker in his mind knew that the returns will be killer if he could get an early entry into this gold rush that will follow. Wood, posing as the governor of the central bank, met Sakaguchi in London along with the team that posed to be his deputy, creating an environment that will resemble meeting senior government officials of a nation. Sakaguchi fell for the con, and the deal was struck for a total of $242 million. Wood also promised a commission of $10 million to Sakaguchi if he sees the entire transaction through. To give you a sense, $240 million is actually almost a steal deal for managing an international airport of a nation capital, even if it is Nigeria. Of this $242 million, $190 million was paid in cash and rest through formal banking routes like the checks and the transfers. All of this made its way to the safe haven in Cayman Island. Nigeria's notorious reputation for being a corrupt nation also helped Wood to present this deal as a way of life when the person making the offer is the governor of the central bank some might possibly trust, especially when you are from Brazil, where such shady deals aren't common. So how did the plan crash? Sakaguchi was the head of overseas operations for Banco Noreste, so he engineered the transfer of the entire $242 million to accounts in Cayman Islands in the packets of $6 million each, from where they transferred to 17 different banks in Nigeria. The money actually traveled around the world from the UK, Switzerland, Hong Kong and the United States to make it almost impossible to redraw the money trail. But when a large Spanish bank, Banco Santander, was carrying out its due diligence before acquiring Banco Noreste, Sakaguchi was forced to produce records for all overseas transactions, especially the ones that were done in Cayman connection. Sakaguchi broke down and confessed to his actions. A long courtroom drama began in Nigeria. Wood was found guilty of 5 crimes and was given 5-year jail term along with confiscation of all his proceeds. Wood completed his term in 2 years. On his return, he sued the authorities for attaching proceeds he had earned before the scam and recovered $167 million. It is widely believed that now Wood is like a mini mafia don and is accused of more heinous crimes like murders. He is believed to be in prison awaiting sentencing, but sources confirm that he can walk in and walk out of the prison almost at will. As far as Sakaguchi is concerned, the last we know from unverified sources is he was sentenced for 10 years in Brazil. The construction of the actual airport in Abuja began in 2000 and was completed in 2002. It now moves over 4 million passengers a year. So much is amiss in this story. How could no one in the bank notice this? Why didn't Sakaguchi inspect the airport land as a standard banking protocol? If you want to know more about this scandal, do take a look at the links in the description and let us know about your version of the scam in the comments.
Up next, from a man who sold a fake airport to a man who sold an entire nation that didn't exist. So born to a wealthy Scottish family in 1786, Gregor MacGregor must go down as the greatest scamster to have ever lived. In fact, his life journey would have been the stuff of legends only if he hadn't scammed so many innocent people along the way. We'll call him Greg for the purposes of this video. So we'll not go into the early life of Greg so you don't get sidetracked. If you're keen, there's enough content on the web to learn about this absolutely extraordinary life. All you need to know is that Greg was well connected, married into a rich family, and was once hailed as a war hero and then labeled as a traitor for getting drunk and deserting his own army. The Venezuelans and the Americans even issued shoot-at-sight orders against him. So by 1820, dejected with himself, he sailed to a place called the Mosquito Grove in Latin America, which was next door to the modern-day islands of Honduras. This was effectively an abandoned jungle standing over the graves of slaves. Waiting to be killed either by an infection or of starvation, he met the tribal king with whom he partied for several days and weeks and eventually got himself a document awarding him 8 million acres of land in exchange for some jewelry and rum. This was also the time when King George IV was being coronated, and Greg joined this event as the prince of the newly found Republic of POAYIS. He kept selling his war heroics to the Brits and the Scots, who were totally unaware of his failures with the Venezuelans, Americans and the Portuguese. Soon, Greg was part of the British and the European royalty, where he would regularly narrate how great the nation of POAYIS was. He claimed the land was fertile, trading was conducive, and positioned POAYIS as a dream that started drawing people in. Greg even shared maps, a constitution, a national anthem. He even issued sovereign bonds for the banks to invest. Soon as public interest grew, people started buying lands, banks started investing in bonds, and with this newfound money, Greg even started setting up embassies all over UK and the Europe to fully legitimize POAYIS as a nation. Investments were made, lands were bought, people now start to migrate in search of a new life. Greg sets 500 British and Scottish families on different ships to POAYIS. When the ships reach as per navigation, they find no trace of POAYIS. The captain and the passenger were so convinced about the existence of POAYIS, they try again and again and again, hoping to find the nation. With time flying, hurricane hit the seas and followed by brutal rains. The elderly died of malaria, young babies and children in the laps of their parents. But Greg was still not done. He kept selling more lands and bonds all over Europe, till finally one day a Honduras ship found the wrecked ship and rescued the remaining passengers. After all this, what happened to Greg? Knowing his time was up, Greg took all the cash and jewels he could, first hiding in France and then eventually escaping to Venezuela 8 years after the shoot-at-sight orders were issued against him. As luck would have it for this lucky bastard, the defense minister of Venezuela turned out to be a comrade who had served with him in the only war where he had rescued the entire army. He welcomed him with both arms, and not only was he awarded citizenship but also inducted into the government as the divisional general of the Venezuelan army. He led a respectful life till he finally passed away in 1845. The story of Gregor MacGregor can be an entire episode or even a movie or a web series in itself. A man of many qualities, but still led so many to their graves. Just kept getting all his life. Certainly no fault in his stars.
And number one on our countdown is the recent Chinese gold scam that broke out in June 2020. It is rare that anything negative about China ever comes out in the public domain. After all, we're talking about a nation that can open fire at its own citizens using battle tanks and conceal the outbreak of the planet's biggest pandemic for many months. This is a country that reports that it has contained corona, and despite being the epicenter of COVID, their economy is growing when the others are in negative. They hold open rock concerts during COVID and no one gets infected. Even in fierce hand-to-hand battle with Indian soldiers who are supposedly stronger and taller than Chinese, no Chinese casualty is ever reported. But despite this great wall of China blocking all information, the news of perhaps the greatest gold scam in the world has made its way out. So we're back in Wuhan and it's 2018. A company called Kin Gold Jewelry, the largest privately owned gold processor in central China's Hubei province. Its shares are listed on Nasdaq Stock Exchange in New York. The company is led by Chairman Xia Zhidong, an intimidating ex-military who is the controlling shareholder. Now between 2015 and 2020, Kinrock took loans worth $2 billion to invest in the real estate. The loans were taken from non-banking financial companies, also known as shadow banks in China. 83 tons of gold was provided as collaterals, plus insurance to secure this liability further. All clear till here. But as time passed, KinGold started defaulting on their payments, and as a result, the shadow banks decided to liquidate the gold that was hypothecated as collateral. But to their utter shock, these were fake gold biscuits and were actually only gold-plated, made of copper and tungsten. A media house, Kaixin, broke this story, which sent shockwaves across the finance community in China and even made its way to the US stock markets, following which the stock has tanked. What's even worse is that the gold reserve of 83 tons amounts 22% of China's total reserves. So in effect, 22% of China's claimed gold reserve is effectively fake, and the remaining reserve gold could also be fake. We also do not know if KinGold was also duping its customers with fake jewelry. The scam, if we even find out more, promises to be of epic proportions the world has never seen before. The stock of KinGold has crashed to less than $1 and was even delisted from Nasdaq. A number of lawsuits have been filed against KinGold, and the American authorities even have threatened to ban Chinese companies from listing in the New York Stock Exchange. Knowing China, we will be extremely surprised if any more details will ever emerge on this case. But what's more interesting is, how did this news come out? Are these signs of inner rebellion in the People's Republic of China, or has the Chinese government planted this on purpose just to prove they too, like other countries, have a free press? Whatever the case may be, this is another example that all is not well in the Iron Wall nation, and their recent aggression towards countries like India could only be a measure to distract its people from the real issues that threaten to spiral into a massive crisis. With this, we come to end of our part 2 series of the 10 greatest scams in history. We could add many more like Watergate, Enron, 2G and so on, but we've tried to get one from each category. And finally, it's quiz time for part 2. The best and the most accurate answers will get Freetext merchandise. The questions will flash on your screen one after the other, so stay tuned. Question number 1. What was the name of the Theranos device which could carry out 200 plus tests? Question number 2. What was the name of the central bank governor whom Nwude impersonated? Question number 3. Which year did Gregory return to Britain as a prince of POAYIS? And finally, what was the total cost of CWG 2010?
Fire your responses in the comment section, and do not forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and please press the bell icon. Hope you enjoyed this episode. My name is Prabhu. God bless you all.